Yeah, the church has stolen our passion for prophecy and the Lord's coming. They really have. This is what the Lord sees when he visits Sardis. And Sardis these days is everywhere. Now, where's their pastor? Let's give him a pastor. Yeah, there he is. Now let's give him a real pastor. You know who's a great pastor? Alistair Begg. I heard Alistair Begg on his radio broadcast a couple weekends ago where they replay a recent sermon he gave at his church. I think it's in Cleveland. Is there a more articulate, highly intelligent individual more than Pastor Alistair Begg? I don't think so. I mean, I think there are some that are in his category. That's how good he is. He's asleep. He's completely asleep at the wheel. You know why I say that? Because in that sermon, he was going through some Old Testament book. In this time, he's going through an Old Testament book instead of preparing his congregation for what is coming. He would never be in an Old Testament book. They're great. They're wonderful. Not now. Now we are in urgency. And they don't know it. And they're not paying attention. And when that day comes, I hope he has awakened before that day comes. But if he has not, a thought that's going to hit him is going to flash through his mind. I never prepared my people for this day. It's going to flash through a lot of minds because he ain't the only one. That's for sure. What a powerful force Alistair Begg would be in this time if he'd wake up. But he's Sardis. Sardis thinks it's awake. They're not. Before I start, someone left a comment. He just keeps repeating the same stuff. That's right. I'm going to repeat something right now about that. I've always said I'm a one or two trick pony. I'm not a theologian. No one has ever asked me to lead a class in secular world or in Christianity. Stan, would you lead the class? We're going to be studying Hebrews. Would you take the lead? Nobody would ask me to do that. Now, no, look, I've got one or two tricks, but oh my goodness, they're priceless. And I thank him all the time that he answered my prayer. My prayer was simple. I don't understand Revelation. I've read it enough. I've read other people, from scholars to part-time hobbyists. And I've never run across a single person that I believed knew what they were talking about. But I know this, when we do understand the book of Revelation, it will affirm and confirm what Jesus said in the Olivet Discourse about his coming, and that's exactly what happened. So I take that little narrow sliver because very, 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 very few of us are talking about it. And I'm looking for that person, man or woman, every week who comes through here and goes, I just want to know the truth. I don't care. I don't care where it leads. Just tell me the truth. And I can give them that sliver of truth. And I'll repeat it over and over until he comes, until he tells me to stop. The grid comes down or I come down. So yeah, you don't have to come here every week if you got it. You're certainly welcome. But I'm looking to help a man or woman a week because most of our brothers and sisters are not interested in this. And I try to figure out, why did this happen? It happened because the church moved from being an investigator of the truth. Let's dig deeper into prophecy and make sure we're right. When was the last time you visited a church or heard one on TV or radio or went to one, or maybe your home church, where the pastor said that? Look, I lean in a certain direction, but I want to make sure I'm right, so I'm always trying to get to the bottom to make sure I've got this correct. I've never heard that from any pastor. I bet you there are a couple out there, though. But in general, they don't exist. They should have stayed in that direction. Keep looking. Because the truth was right there. All they had to do, leaving aside war in heaven. Let's don't even bring up war in heaven yet. All they needed to do was this. When Jesus mentions that the times of the Gentiles will be in effect, when that temple comes down, it will be the only plan of God. He indicates that there will be an end and a change at that time. He says Jerusalem will be trodden under by Gentiles until the fullness of the Gentiles comes in. So there's going to be a change. We all should recognize we're in the times of the Gentiles. When he gave the Great Commission after his resurrection, go into all the nations now. This was a major departure from what he had ever said before. Go into all the nations. Paul called himself the apostle of the Gentiles. The Acts, the book of Acts, is a lot of it is about that transition period of the Jews coming to grips with it. We got to take it to Gentiles? We got to go out to Gentiles? Yeah, there was a strange, awkward period as we moved into the times of the Gentiles. Jews were still invited in. They were the first to be invited in. But Jesus is indicating it will come to an end and there will be a change. So in other words, it will not be the end. When the fullness of the Gentiles comes in, it's not the end, but it is an ending. Paul does the same thing in Romans. He says there's a partial blindness on Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles comes in. The Amplified Bible says until the full number of the Gentiles has come in. I'm not sure that's the best translation for those Greek words, but that's certainly conveying truth there. That's what we're waiting for. So again, Paul is saying there will be a moment when the fullness of the Gentiles comes in and there will be a change. Both changes. Jerusalem will no longer be trodden down by Gentiles like it is today. Let me repeat something else. The Jerusalem of Jesus' day, it's called Old City in modern day Jerusalem. It's trodden down by Gentiles. Over 90% Arab and a few percentage points Armenian. They cannot infuse that area with enough Jews. They've tried. They can't. It fails every time. They're unaware that there's a prophecy about that. So the change involves Jerusalem. Paul says when it comes to an end, the change is going to involve Israel. They're going to come to the truth. That's what the next phase is all about. See, if they had just realized that, they would have said, okay, what we're looking for now is that moment when the fullness of the Gentiles comes in and the transitioning to Israel and the Jews. It wouldn't have been long before somebody said, look, I think that happens at Seal 6 because we see the Gentile nations standing there. We're told they're from every bloodline, every nation, every tongue. They're in heaven. They're done. But we also see the sealing of the 144,000 from all 12 tribes. And those people are seen again on the earth. In the seventh seal, we see them in Jerusalem. So they continue on. Seal 6 is the transition. And it would have been just another step to see, hey, Seal 6 is actually what the Lord is talking about in the Olivet Discourse when he talks about his coming. It's the same event. That way, we never would have pushed the Olivet Discourse out of its rightful place. But we did. And if we could have added into that, that process of them understanding what's going on, war in heaven, which they eventually would have gotten into and seen, and then, now you really have something. He's coming before the beast even rises out of the sea. He's coming at the end of the times of the Gentiles, or the church age, as it's sometimes commonly called. If we had done that, we would not have pushed aside the Olivet Discourse discussion about his coming. Neither would we have pushed aside his commands and his instructions about that day. This is a day that is so important to him, and that needs to be reflected in how we live our daily lives. It is supposed to be part of who we are as a Christian, but that got changed the moment we picked up the Olivet Discourse, stuck it at the very end, like post-trib, like pre-wrath, like mid-trib, like pre-trib did. Stick it at the end. Pre-trib did something else. They said, we're going to invent a rapture day to replace that. And so that's what the church most of the evangelical church is waiting for. They're not waiting for the day Jesus described. Let me go through the Olivet Discourse. It won't take long, where he gives us commands and awareness about that day, and in Luke 17. And ask yourself, is the church you go to, are they fulfilling this? Are they honoring these commands and statements by the Lord? Then ask yourself, am I? Are you doing that? Am I doing it personally? And I do. I review this and I make sure now that I understand this is important to him. I need to make it important to me. We'll start in Matthew. There's only a couple in Matthew that we need to be aware of. Here's the first one. Therefore, that therefore is after he has just discussed his coming and said that it will be like the days of Noah, suddenly, people unaware that it's about to happen. Therefore, stay awake, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. He's saying that because we're waiting for a number. That's what the souls under the altar are told at the fifth seal. We're waiting for a number. You don't know the number. I don't know the number, so we can't know when this event is going to take place. So stay awake, stay ready, he means, and watchful. Be prepared, because we don't know when it could come. He said only the Father at that time knew. He knows now. All authority's been given to him in heaven and earth, but he didn't know then. The angels still don't know. You don't know. I don't know. Stay ready. Is this a position the church takes? No, it absolutely is not. Here's the next one. This is after the analogy about the master of the house. If he had known the thief was coming, he would have stayed up and not suffered loss. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. When you look at that Greek word, it could mean think. It will not happen at a time you can imagine, that you think is the right day. Why? Because you don't know the number. You can't know the number. You will never hit on the right day because you can't know it. These people who make I won't call it a living, but a hobby on YouTube predicting rapture dates, it's silly. They don't know. Instead of doing that, they should be preparing the church for the kind of day that is coming. You can look for signs and stuff. That's fine. I'm not arguing with that. But to predict a rapture date because it falls on a certain day count or a certain this or a certain that, you can't know it. It's not based on that. It's based on a number. And you don't know the number. Neither can you know the number. Let's jump to Mark and his version of the Olivet Discourse. We got a couple of commands and things to be aware of there as well. Be on guard. Keep awake, he says, for you do not know when the time will come. This is right after he says, only the Father knows. The church is not listening. These people who are predicting rapture dates based on this, that, or the other thing, they're disregarding this. They can't know. It's impossible. We can see signs and know that we're in the area. It's soon. We can know that. You can't know the date because you don't know the number. Read the fifth seal. Again, they're told to wait. We're waiting on a number. At the sixth seal, that number hits. And no one can number it, except, of course, God. Again, he says in Mark, therefore, stay awake, for you do not know when the master of the house will come. You see, this is over and over and over. You talk about repeating points. He's making sure we get this. Stay awake. You have to. It could have happened in the first century, right after the temple was destroyed, if the number was really small. 2,000 years later, we now know it's really, really big. We still don't know the day. We still don't know the number. But we've already seen a sign, so we know it's coming. But we still don't know the day. And at the very end of Mark, the Olivet Discourse, to make sure that we don't say, oh, that was just for the disciples, he says, and what I say to you, disciples, I say to all, stay awake. No one is going to have an excuse for not listening to him. No one. Let's jump to Luke's version of the Olivet Discourse. But watch yourselves. Again, this is right after he talks about his coming. But watch yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness and cares of this life, and that day come upon you suddenly like a trap. Little did we know that the church was also going to be engaged in distracting us. For it will come upon all who dwell on the face of the whole earth. It's a big, big, big day that we need to continually stay ready for. Also in Luke, but stay awake at all times, praying that you may have strength to escape all these things that are going to take place and to stand before the Son of Man. Wow. Always be praying. Is your church always praying about this? No, they're not. He's telling us to be ready for that day. The church would go, oh, we are. Oh, we are. No, you are not. You are not ready for that day. You're ready for some other day, a day that the church made up. Be like a woman who's invited to the governor's ball, and her date says, now you've got to wear formal attire. They won't let us in, but you got a couple of months, so I'll be back before I'm leaving town. I'll be back a day before the big party, and we'll touch base then. She goes, tells all her friends, hey, I got an invite to the governor's ball. I'm going to have to get a formal dress, though. And friend goes, oh no, that's a costume ball. What? Yeah, it's a costume ball. The formal ball is like later in the year. No, your friend got it wrong. You need to be in costume or you're going to look real silly. And another friend goes, yeah, she's right. And so the woman goes out and gets, I don't know, costume that looks like Granny Clampett. The two 20-year-olds that are listening, that was a sitcom back in the 60s before we needed puberty blockers. And so the date calls her and goes, I'm in town. I'll pick you up tomorrow at 7:30. You ready to go? I'm all ready, she says. No, she is not. And that's the church. They are not ready for this day that is coming, like Noah's day of the flood or like Sodom and Gomorrah. Let's go to Luke 17, which is also about that day. So will it be on the day when the Son of Man is revealed. This is after he's talked about it'll be like Noah and Sodom and Gomorrah. On that day, let the one who is on the housetop with his goods in the house not come down to take them away. Does your church tell you about that? Warn you? Don't be worried about your goods on that day, he's saying. Don't be thinking. You are naturally going to assume that everything you own is being threatened. Everything that you've done here on earth and accumulated is going to be in danger of going away on that day. Don't you worry about it, is what he's saying. And he's going to make that even more clear in a second. Likewise, let the one who is in the field not turn back. Remember Lot's wife. Remember Lot's wife? Remember? She had an opinion about everything. She was so hard-headed you couldn't tell her anything. Thank goodness she was a good cook. No, I'm thinking of my sister. Sorry. Lot's wife wasn't ready to go. That's the point of this. Lot's wife was not ready to go. And finally, listen to these chilling words. Speaking of that day, whoever seeks to preserve his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life will keep it. And then he goes into, on that day, two will be sleeping. One will be taken, one will be left. Two will be working. It's night in some places in the world. It'll be daytime in others. One will be taken, one will be left. Disciples go, where will they be taken? You know, we'll see the Lord pointing, where the vultures gather together over the carcass. In the air. This is one of the things he keeps telling us. Look for me in the air. He's not touching down on earth at that coming. For his people at the end of the times of the Gentiles. Those are his words. Does it look to you like it's a day where we can just kind of go, it'll happen when it happens? No, that looks like a very serious day. The church is not preparing its people. And as it stands right now, they're going to react just like the pagans are going to react. We see that in the Olivet Discourse, fainting, killing over. Sixth seal, we see them hiding under rocks, begging the rocks to fall on them. Everyone is aware. This day of the Lamb, he's here. They're aware of it. He's here to drop off Satan and to get his church, mainly the dead ones. They're going to rise first. But he's giving those of us alive at that time the opportunity. And that day, it will be revealed if we were listening to him or not. Simple as that. One of the reasons he uses this channel, and he uses other people too. I've never been the first guy on anything, and nor am I interested in being the first guy on anything. But he has used this channel, but he uses other people as well. But one of the reasons he uses this channel is to shame people like Alistair Begg. Alistair would be brilliant at this. And he's saying, you wouldn't touch it. You're not doing it. You're going through some Old Testament book. So I got to use this guy with a microphone, because he was a shock jock throughout most of his adult life, one of the filthiest on-air personalities in America. And then he came to me late in his life, December of 2007, and everything changed. He's poorly educated, 2 years in college, and he squandered those joining a stupid fraternity. Alistair Begg, look at all of your training, all of your ability. I could have used you, but you said no. So I found this village idiot with a microphone. That's what he's really saying to them, whether they know it or not. Now, he's not making fun of me. He's blessed me with something so valuable that I turn around and I go, look, it's yours too, for free. He gave it to me for free. I'm giving it to you for free. That's what's going on. And that's why they missed the signs. The next video, God willing, unless something else comes up or the grid goes down or I go down or he tells me to stop, we're going to do an update about those very important signs. Thanks for watching.